I never imagined I would find myself sharing my story online, but here I am. I'm a 35-year-old accountant who has been diligently working at a local firm for nearly a decade. Throughout my career, I've always considered myself a practical and level-headed individual, traits that have helped me maintain my composure during the turbulent times I'm currently facing. I'm married to Kathy, a 33-year-old woman I've been with for about 5 years and married for 2. We don't have any children, and in hindsight, this is probably for the best. Kathy stepped away from her career in marketing shortly after we got married, deciding to focus on our relationship. I was completely fine with this arrangement, as my income was sufficient to support both of us. We owned a house, had a decent savings account, not extravagant, but enough to live comfortably. For most of our marriage, Kathy remained at home, but recently, things began to shift. It's difficult to identify the exact moment when I first sensed something was wrong, but gradually, Kathy started to become more distant. She began staying out later than usual, whether it was socializing with friends or spending more time at the gym. Affection became scarce, and she would become defensive whenever I inquired about her behavior. Initially, I attributed these changes to stress or perhaps a temporary rough patch in our marriage. However, as the weeks passed, the uneasy feeling persisted, and my suspicions were confirmed one evening. While Kathy was taking a shower, her phone buzzed with a message. Instinctively, I glanced at it, noticing it was from a man named Derek. At first glance, I didn't think much of it, but the tone of the message seemed unusual. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe." My heart sank as I realized what this meant. Kathy had been involved with Derek, her personal trainer, for months. The messages were explicit, filled with plans that clearly excluded me from her future. I sat there, frozen, staring at my phone in disbelief. The woman I had married and trusted was betraying me. Instead of feeling the rage or sorrow I expected, I felt numb. Perhaps it was the shock or my inherently pragmatic nature taking over. Nonetheless, I knew I had to confront her without letting my emotions take control. When Kathy emerged from the bathroom, I handed her the phone calmly and asked her to explain. Initially, she denied everything, claiming it was all a joke. But as I showed her some of the incriminating texts, she realized there was no point in lying. Without any sign of remorse, apology, or guilt, she declared, "I want a divorce." She admitted that she had been seeing Derek for some time and confessed that she was unhappy in our marriage. She didn't mince words, she was leaving me for him. What stunned me next was her immediate demand to split everything. She wanted half of all our assets, including the house and savings we had built together. She even justified her demand by claiming she deserved it since she had given up her career to support mine. I was taken aback by her audacity, but I maintained my composure. Perhaps I had already emotionally detached myself from the relationship, or maybe I had an underlying understanding that she was unaware of. I agreed to her terms, telling her that if she wanted a divorce, I wouldn't oppose it and that she could have half of what she believed I had. Her reaction was one of surprise, likely expecting a confrontation or emotional breakdown, but I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. What Kathy was unaware of, and what I deemed unnecessary to disclose, was that almost all our assets were actually in my father's name. My father, a wise and strategic man, had advised me years ago to place our major assets under his ownership as a precaution against potential future issues, be it debts, lawsuits, or, as it turned out, an unfaithful spouse. At the time, it seemed like sound financial planning, and I hadn't given it much thought until Kathy's demand surfaced. On paper, I didn't possess much, a modest bank account, a car in my name, and a few miscellaneous items. The house was technically owned by my father, and the majority of our savings were in accounts he controlled. To avoid a contentious legal battle, I suggested we pursue mediation, thinking it would be a simpler and more cost-effective solution for both of us. Kathy agreed, likely believing she would receive a significant portion of my assets. Little did she know, the arrangement with my father had been in place for years, a detail I had momentarily forgotten until the divorce discussions began. Although I hadn't specifically planned for a situation like this, I couldn't deny my gratitude for my father's foresight. The house we lived in was legally his property, as were most of our investments and savings, assets Kathy had her eyes on. I had always maintained a low financial profile in my own name, living modestly enough that no one, including Kathy, questioned it. As soon as the divorce process commenced, I informed my father. Understandably, he wasn't pleased with the situation, as any father would be, but he comprehended the necessity of keeping everything confidential. We consulted with a lawyer to ensure that our financial arrangements were legally sound and secure. Everything was meticulously in order. Kathy could ask for anything, but there wasn't much for her to claim in my name. Kathy wasted no time in hiring an aggressive divorce attorney, one of those ruthless lawyers who promised to extract as much as possible. In contrast, I secured a low-key yet reputable lawyer who specialized in cases with complex financial dynamics like mine. My aim was to avoid unnecessary drama, but I was also determined not to let Kathy and her lawyer intimidate me. The first step in the divorce process was asset disclosure, which, as you might imagine, did not go as Kathy had hoped. I transparently laid out all my assets as required by law. When Kathy saw the minimal amounts in my name, her lawyer's confident demeanor faltered. They seemed confused and perhaps even suspicious, but there wasn't much they could do. I had been completely honest, and there were no hidden assets for them to uncover. Kathy began to berate me right there, calling me an asshole and accusing me of deceit. However, I had already provided everything I owned. After a heated exchange filled with accusations and raised voices, I decided to leave, suggesting that we continue our discussions once she had calmed down. This brings me to why I'm sharing my story here on Reddit. I'm uncertain if I've handled everything correctly. So, Reddit, am I in the wrong for agreeing to give her half of what I have, even though I knew she wasn't actually going to receive anything substantial? Update 1 ***. Since my last update, things have escalated significantly. After the initial asset disclosure, Kathy was in complete disbelief, convinced that I was hiding something. Her lawyer wasn't much better, and their confusion was evident when they saw the modest financial numbers on paper. It didn't take long for them to start demanding a more thorough investigation, with Kathy persistently asking about the whereabouts of all our money, the house, the investments, the savings she believed we had. She couldn't fathom that after years of marriage, there wasn't more for her to claim. Her lawyer quickly brought in a forensic accountant to delve deeper, suspecting that I had concealed money in hidden accounts. At first, I was anxious, not because I had anything to hide, but because I knew this would only prolong the divorce process. However, after discussing with my lawyer and reviewing everything again, I realized there was nothing they could legally find. Every claim I had made was completely accurate, and there was no trace leading to the assets in my father's name. As the investigation continued, frustration visibly mounted on Kathy's face. She was accustomed to getting what she wanted, but this time, there was nothing substantial for her to take. It seemed she couldn't comprehend that she was leaving with almost nothing. Her next strategy was to argue that she had significantly contributed to my career and our lifestyle. She insisted that by managing the household, she had enabled me to concentrate on my work and advance in my career. While I acknowledged that her taking care of things at home was beneficial at times, it wasn't as if I was running a Fortune 500 company. I was a mid-level accountant with a stable job, and there hadn't been any meteoric rise in my income that she could claim to have facilitated. Despite this, she continued to push the narrative that she had sacrificed her own career in marketing to support mine. The truth was, she had stopped working long before deciding to stay home, and it was a choice she made independently, not something I had ever asked of her. Her lawyer repeatedly brought this up in an attempt to portray me as someone who had profited from her supposed sacrifices, but there was little to back up that claim. At one point, they even tried to involve my parents in the proceedings, alleging that they had been giving me money under the table or that I had been hiding assets with their assistance. This particularly infuriated me because my parents had nothing to do with this situation, and dragging them into it was a low blow. Thankfully, my lawyer swiftly shut down those attempts, but it was clear that Kathy was becoming desperate as the divorce proceedings dragged on. Kathy then decided to take matters into her own hands. If she couldn't secure what she wanted through the courts, she aimed to tarnish my reputation in other ways. She began spreading rumors within our social circle, claiming that I had been hiding money from her and that I had been financially abusive throughout our marriage. I was astounded by the lies she was disseminating. I started hearing from mutual friends about how she was incessantly complaining about how I was leaving her with nothing and how I had manipulated her into believing we had more than we actually did. She even took to social media, posting vague yet pointed comments about narcissistic partners and betrayals. Naturally, some people sided with her, as there are always individuals who will support the person who appears to have been wronged. However, most of our close friends knew better. They understood that I wasn't the type of person to engage in such behavior. It was frustrating to watch her attempt to destroy my reputation simply because things weren't unfolding in her favor. Nevertheless, I tried not to let it affect me. I knew the truth, and those who truly mattered recognized it as well. Additionally, I had more pressing concerns, such as ensuring she didn't receive more than she deserved. While Kathy was occupied with her smear campaign, I was focused on covering all my bases. My lawyer and I maintained constant communication, ensuring we had all the necessary evidence to support my side of the story. I meticulously documented every interaction I had with Kathy, every demand she made, and every attempt she made to portray me as the antagonist. I knew that if this matter ever reached court, having that documentation would be essential. I also began gathering evidence of her affair with Derek. Although adultery doesn't always play a significant role in divorce settlements, I wanted to ensure it was clear that she wasn't the innocent party here. I had screenshots of their text exchanges, pictures they had taken together, and even statements from some of her friends who were aware of the affair but had remained silent. It wasn't about humiliating her, I simply wanted the truth to come to light. Additionally, I prepared for the inevitable fallout, knowing that once it was evident she wasn't going to receive half of everything, things would deteriorate further. I distanced myself, focusing on my work and personal life, while making sure I was ready for the next phase of the divorce. An intriguing development was Derek's reaction to everything. Initially, when Kathy told him she wanted to leave me for him, he seemed enthusiastic about it. They shared a romantic fantasy of starting a new life together. However, as the divorce proceedings became complicated, Derek began to pull away. It turned out he wasn't as committed to Kathy as she had believed. From what I heard, he started to have second thoughts when he realized that being with her might involve dealing with her financial troubles. Kathy had envisioned a brand new life with Derek, but he wasn't prepared to commit to that. In fact, word got out that he began losing clients at the gym due to the scandal, as people didn't want to work with a trainer known for getting involved with married women. Derek has been trying to distance himself from Kathy, and she's starting to realize that perhaps this wasn't the fairy tale she had imagined. I almost felt sorry for her, but then I reminded myself of everything she had done. As for me, I find myself feeling conflicted. On one hand, I feel vindicated, relieved that I protected my assets and that Kathy isn't walking away with what she had anticipated. On the other hand, I can't help but feel a sense of sadness. This was my marriage after all. I loved Kathy once and genuinely believed we would build a life together. Watching it all unravel in this manner is incredibly difficult, even though I recognize it's for the best. Update 2 ***. Since my last update, things have taken an even more dramatic turn. Kathy is growing increasingly desperate, and it's manifesting in the worst possible ways. She has clearly come to the realization that she won't receive the financial payout she expected from the divorce, and now she's attempting to make my life miserable. Most recently, she's been threatening to ruin my career and tarnish my reputation at work. She directly told me that if I didn't make things easier for her by giving her more money, she would ensure that everyone at my firm knew what a scumbag I was. At first, I wasn't entirely sure what she meant by this, but it became clear when she began showing up unannounced at my office. The first time she visited, she was calm and acted as though she just needed to talk. However, when I informed her that there was nothing more to discuss, she lost her composure. She raised her voice, declaring, "I'll make sure everyone here knows the truth about you." Fortunately, I managed to escort her out before the situation escalated further, but it was evident that her behavior was becoming unpredictable. Her actions at home, specifically her temporary residence with her parents, have been erratic as well. After realizing she wouldn't receive the substantial payout she had anticipated, she moved back in with her parents. From what I've heard, things haven't been going well for her there either. While her parents are supportive, they're not exactly pleased with how everything has unfolded. It seems they, too, see through her portrayal of herself as a victim. Mutual friends have informed me that she's been lashing out, getting into arguments with her family, and acting as though she's on the brink of a breakdown. The legal aspects of the situation have also become more problematic. Kathy's lawyer is leaving no stone unturned, attempting to uncover any dirt on me. They've filed motions to subpoena my parents' financial records, despite my lawyer repeatedly clarifying that my parents' assets are not part of this divorce. This is a clear attempt to rattle me, but it's not yielding any results. Additionally, Kathy's legal team has filed a motion to depose my colleagues at work, hoping to find something, anything, that might suggest I'm hiding assets or receiving income under the table. They're grasping at straws, but it's exhausting to handle each new request they present. Every time we address one of their demands, another one arises, making the entire situation feel like an endless chess match where Kathy and her team are perpetually trying to counter my moves. However, thanks to my lawyer and the solid legal protections my father put in place years ago, I've managed to stay one step ahead. Still, the constant battle is draining, and I'm unsure how much longer I can sustain this effort before we inevitably end up in court. Speaking of legal proceedings, we've already attempted mediation twice, and both sessions were disastrous. The first session was cut short after about 20 minutes when Kathy refused to budge on her demand for half of the house and our savings. My lawyer explained the reality of the situation, clarifying that the house was in my father's name and that our savings were minimal, but Kathy wouldn't listen. She stormed out, accusing me of lying and claiming that the mediator was biased against her. The second attempt wasn't much better. This time, Kathy arrived with a list of completely unrealistic demands. She wanted full ownership of the house, half of all our savings, which barely existed, and alimony for at least 5 years. When my lawyer once again calmly explained that she wasn't entitled to any of that, Kathy lost her composure. She began yelling about how she had sacrificed everything for me and how I was leaving her with nothing. I remained as calm as possible, but internally, I was furious. After that session, it was clear that this divorce was headed for court, whether I wanted it or not. To make matters worse, Kathy has been borrowing money from her family and friends to cover her legal fees. She clearly didn't anticipate the divorce dragging on this long, and now she's running out of funds. I'm not exactly sure how she plans to continue paying her aggressive lawyer, but that's not my concern. The more desperate she becomes, the more erratic her behavior gets. Mutual friends have told me that she's been spending most of her time at home, venting to anyone who will listen about how I've ruined her life. It's gotten to the point where some of her friends are distancing themselves from her, tired of the constant drama and her relentless portrayal of herself as a victim. It seems like everything Kathy thought she was going to gain from this divorce is slipping through her fingers. Throughout all of this, I've been doing my best to remain calm and approach things strategically. Every time Kathy makes a new accusation or demand, I counter it with evidence. Every financial document they request, I provide it because I have nothing to hide. My lawyer has been excellent in ensuring that we're adhering strictly to the law, which is more than I can say for Kathy's team. Additionally, I've been working diligently to protect my parents' privacy. Kathy's attempts to involve them in this mess are infuriating, but fortunately, there are legal protections in place that prevent her from accessing their financial records. Still, the mere fact that she's trying shows just how desperate she has become, as if she believes there's some hidden treasure I'm keeping from her, but in reality, there's nothing to be found. Update 3 The day of the court hearing finally arrived, and the tension was palpable. Truly, it was electrifying. Kathy was the first to testify, and she came out swinging from the start. She made it abundantly clear that she believed I had been hiding assets from her all along. She accused me of manipulating our finances, concealing money in secret accounts, and lying about the true extent of our financial situation. Her emotional testimony painted herself as the wrong party who had sacrificed everything by putting her career on hold to support mine. At one point, she was sobbing on the stand, recounting how she had trusted me implicitly, only to be blindsided by the divorce and my alleged financial deceit. However, the real turning point came when my lawyer presented evidence of her affair with Derek. As soon as the texts, pictures, and details of her relationship with him were revealed, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. The jury and the judge could see the reality of what was happening. Kathy's narrative of being a victim began to unravel before my eyes. At one moment, she even attempted to downplay the affair, claiming it was merely a mistake and had nothing to do with the divorce. But by then, the damage had already been done. Her credibility was irreparably damaged, and it was evident that her financial demands were motivated more by greed than anything else. When it was my turn to testify, I made sure to remain calm and stick to the facts. My lawyer had prepared me thoroughly, and I knew that displaying emotions or becoming defensive would not aid my case. I detailed how my assets had been structured under my father's name for years, how I had provided full financial disclosures, and how I had attempted to handle the divorce amicably through mediation. I also testified about Kathy's threats, her erratic behavior, and the smear campaign she had been conducting against me. My lawyer presented documentation of all her accusations, both public and in court, demonstrating how unfounded they were. We laid out the truth about our finances. The house belonged to my father, our savings were modest at best, and there was no hidden stash of money for Kathy to claim. The judge appreciated my straightforwardness. I didn't attempt to vilify Kathy, nor did I sugarcoat the reality of what had transpired. The facts were clear, and I ensured they were presented without unnecessary drama or exaggeration. Several key witnesses were called during the trial, and their testimonies were instrumental in solidifying my case. First, my father took the stand and explained the financial arrangement we had established years ago. He detailed how the house was in his name, how the investments were under his control, and that all of this was done as a form of long-term financial protection. He made it clear that these assets were his, not mine, and that Kathy had no legal right to them. Next, one of my colleagues from work testified. Kathy's legal team had attempted to argue that I had been hiding money by receiving under-the-table payments or bonuses, but my colleague quickly debunked that notion. He spoke about my modest income and regular, transparent salary. There were no secret bonuses or hidden income sources, just the straightforward paycheck I had disclosed. These witnesses were crucial in demonstrating that Kathy's accusations were unfounded. The judge could see that there was no elaborate scheme on my part, just a simple and transparent financial arrangement that Kathy had never bothered to understand. After days of testimony and legal arguments, the judge finally delivered the verdict. It was an immense relief to hear the words, "The divorce will be granted in my favor." Kathy's demands for half of the house and our savings were outright denied. The judge ruled that because the house and most of our assets were in my father's name, Kathy had no claim to them. The only thing she was awarded was a minimal amount of alimony, and even that was for a short duration, barely enough to cover her legal fees, let alone the lifestyle she had hoped to maintain. The judge made it clear that Kathy's affair and her lack of contribution to the household finances influenced his decision. He saw through her attempts to portray herself as a victim and ruled accordingly. As the verdict was read, I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. The months of stress, the constant accusations, and the fear of losing everything, all of it evaporated in that moment. I knew that, legally, I was in the clear. Kathy, on the other hand, did not take the verdict well. As soon as the judge finished reading the decision, she burst into tears, shouting that the system was unfair and accusing me of cheating her out of what was rightfully hers. She stormed out of the courtroom, leaving her lawyer looking exasperated. I'm not sure what she expected, but it was evident that she hadn't prepared herself for the possibility of losing. For me, the immediate feeling was one of relief. I thanked my lawyer, who had done an excellent job throughout the entire process, and left the courthouse. My phone was inundated with messages from friends and family congratulating me on the outcome. Word had spread quickly, and the local community was already discussing the case. It felt good to know that the truth had prevailed and that I could finally move on with my life. However, Kathy wasn't done yet. Outside the courthouse, she had a full-blown meltdown in front of a small crowd. She started screaming about how I had lied and manipulated the system, declaring that she was going to appeal the decision. The problem is, she doesn't have the financial means to do so. Her lawyer made it clear during the proceedings that she was running out of funds, and from what I've heard, she's still borrowing money from family and friends just to get by. That said, I am incredibly grateful for my father's advice and foresight in protecting my finances. Without his help, I can't imagine the kind of mess I would have been in right now. I'm also thankful for the unwavering support of my friends, family, and colleagues who stood by me even when Kathy was spreading rumors and attempting to destroy my reputation. Looking ahead, I'm hopeful. I understand that it will take time to fully recover from this ordeal, both emotionally and financially, but I'm ready to move forward with my life. I've learned invaluable lessons from this experience and am determined not to repeat the same mistakes in the future. For now, my focus is on regaining a sense of normalcy and enjoying the peace that comes with finally closing this painful chapter of my life.